Well, the Houston Astros and the Mariners, other teams are out there and they are just trying to get stronger. We've got MVP candidates. We've got Cy Young candidates winning back-to-back awards. Let's go back to the bullpen and talk about it right now.
I'm looking to the bullpen to bring my lefty in. Keep the lead and make your team look pedestrian. It's in your wheelhouse, we'll swing for the fence. You know it's money around here, man, I ain't talking expense. Strike one, heat a low in the way, you can't hit it. You know you wanna start a rally, but you better forget it. Strike two, off speed, same spot, your car looking. Get ready at the plate, this time you're not cooking. Strike three, swinging out of the zone. You ain't even touch it first. Tell me how they gonna drive you home. Walk it back, looking like we ain't cool then. The game's over, might as well put them back to the bullpen, oh yeah.
That's right. In all off season long, we are constantly going back to the bullpen, not just because it's baseball in 2025, but because we've got the old 2-9er with us, Mike Stanton. Mike, how you doing, sir? Welcome in, man.
Oh, I am doing just fine. Yeah. Not my favorite time of year. I'm not going to lie to you. I was a longtime player. I like regular season, but baseball is a 12-month sport now. So we're going to be here all off season talking about anything that happens. And yeah, we just had awards week last week.
Yeah, and a lot of awards, people receiving accolades upon accolades. I mean, probably seen some of the most talented players that we've seen in the last 20 or 30 years, and definitely guys that are, I would say, generational talents. Mike, I don't think that's too far-fetched with some of these names we're going to mention tonight. We're going to talk about how the Mariners swing for the fences with their guy that they wanted to lock up because of what he did in the playoffs. We'll discuss a little bit the Astros' interest in Brendan Donovan in a crowded infield. And then James Hicks, you may not know who he is, but he is a guy that the Astros think have a future in the starting rotation. And to round it off, the Phillies want Jake Myers. Wow.
Interesting.
I mean, hey, Jake Myers apparently has got some value.
That's right.
So let's get to it. Back-to-back MVPs for Shohei Ohtani. Back-to-back MVPs for Aaron Judge. We'll get to the pitchers in a second. But, Mike, these two guys alone. Now, let's do this. Let's bury the lead. Let's talk about Aaron Judge because there was a lot of people who thought that Cal Riley should have won it, and Cal Riley missed it by 20 votes.
Yeah, by 20 points. Yeah, so what it really was I think Judge got 17 first place votes and 13 second place votes. That comes up to 30. And then you flip those numbers, Cal Riley got 13 first place votes and 17 second place votes. So that's where you get the numbers. And I think they got it right. You know, as great of a season as Cal Riley had, and you're not going to take anything away from him. It's not like Aaron Judge had 25 home runs. Dude hit over 50 home runs. And if you look across the numbers, you look at all the rest, I mean, he hit 330. I mean, you know, drove in a boatload of runs. Now, I understand the other side of that. You know, Cal had an incredible season, both offensively and defensively, did not have a pass ball all season, didn't have a pass ball until the World Series. And it was just one. So just an amazing season he had. And you can understand how a catcher is more valuable than a right fielder. Well, the right fielder put up big, huge numbers. You know, Cal also plays on the West Coast in Seattle. So that has something to do with it also. You hear about Judge all the time. Those late West Coast games, you don't always hear about, you know, exactly how well he was doing until later in the season when he started chasing 60.
Yeah, definitely. And when you look at their numbers, I mean, they're not that far apart. But I think WAR does play a part where Aaron Judge had 9.7 WAR and Cal Riley had 7.4. You know, you also have a batting average that's almost 100 points higher.
Right.
The OPS plus was, you know, about 50 points higher. The OPS, I mean, everything was just a tick higher. But
Right.
like you said, as a catcher, when you look at the guys that have hit a lot of home runs as a catcher lately, like Salvador Perez, the guys that can connect with the bat behind the plate, and to be a defensive backstop. And that's where, because I had a discussion with a couple Mariners content creators the other day, just through DM on X, and that's where they thought Cal Riley should have edged out Aaron Judge. But they're like, do you think if Cal Riley had the Yankees pinstripes and Aaron Judge had the Mariners, do you think it would have been flipped? And I was like, there he is.
I mean, you're only talking about 4 first place votes.
Right.
Okay. So is there an East Coast bias? Yeah, but there's absolutely nothing we can do about it either. I mean, that's just the way it is. And, playing earlier in the day, having those East Coast games finishing around, 10 o'clock, their local time, which is 7 o'clock out on the West Coast. When the Seattle Mariners play a night game, a lot of the people on the West Coast, the games have been over for a long time, and they're, if not in bed, they are on the way to bed. So does that have something to do with it? I think it does. I think that, like I said before, I do think that they got it right, but I also think they got it right by having the votes as close as they were, because, Cal deserved it. It could have been, they could have done it. They haven't done it in a long time, but they could have done a co-MVP. I'm glad they didn't, because that just adds a lot more controversy to the situation. But congratulations to both guys. Both guys had incredible years. I mean, Aaron Judge had a historic year. I mean, as great as the numbers that he put up are among the best that we've seen any offensive player have in quite a long time.
Exactly. And I think the guy that right now, Mike, when you look at his resume, I mean, Shohei Ohtani's been in the league since 2017. He comes over here and he just absolutely Mike, if there's a generational player, I think someone like Shohei Ohtani is him. I think Aaron, I mean, what do you think?
We're going to be talking about some of these players, several of these players. I think Aaron Judge is one of them. I mean, Shohei arguably is already maybe the best player to ever walk on the field when you look at what he's done. I mean, when you're in a category above Babe Ruth, that's pretty lofty. That's pretty lofty praise. But I think even with Aaron Judge, I think you're talking about these are going to be some of the best players that have ever walked on the field. And Shohei winning 4 MVPs out of 5 years. The only year he didn't win it was 2022. The question is, how many is he going to win? Barry Bonds had 7. Now he's still got work to do to get to that level. But I mean, if he's healthy and on the field, who's going to beat him? Because he's always got the two-way player thing, and there's just nobody that can really compete with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at all his awards, Mike. He's won MVP back-to-back years. 3 years ago, it was with the Angels. But this guy has got 8 all MLB team selections. He has won the Hank Aaron Award 3 years in a row, Silver Slugger 3 years in a row, Edgar Martinez Outstanding Designated Hitter Award 5 years in a row. I mean,
it really seems like every time he walks on the field, and we said this during the World Series, he's setting some kind of record, and he is. And the reason is because there's just no one like him. There has never been anyone like him. I mean, have there been other players in the past that could have probably gone both ways? Of course. But how many players can you honestly say is one of the league's best pitchers and one of the league's best hitters at the same time? So, you go back to the early days of Mike Trout. And Mike Trout, I think he was, even as great as he was and as many MVPs and second MVPs that he had, which is several, I think he was underappreciated. People need to understand what we are seeing with Shohei Ohtani. We are literally watching history being made seemingly every time he walks on the field.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Trout had that amazing run 14, 16, and 19 with 3 most valuable player
And I think
awards.
1 or 2 of those he got second, and he probably should have won those also.
True. He could have won it like 5 years in a row.
Right. Yeah. But I think
It,
we just kind of took it for granted
mm,
that, Trout he's Mike Trout. He's as good. And, when somebody else had a great year, well, we're tired of talking about Mike Trout. We're not going to get tired of talking about Shohei because he's doing things that no one else has ever been able to do.
yeah, it's unbelievable. And, some people will say, oh, well, it's just not fair. And I'm like, well, if you can't beat them, then you got to be better than them.
That's right.
And right now, with all that being said, he wasn't even the main reason why the Dodgers won the World Series offensively. I mean, he pitched well, but
Yeah.
you and I talked, early in the postseason where he wasn't really hitting outside of that 3 home run game
Right.
and that 10 strikeout game, which was phenomenal. He
Well, that's
didn't
what won him the ALCS MVP was
exactly.
that
Yeah,
one game. And they
one
were
game.
talking about, well, Freddie Freeman. Well, Freddie Freeman didn't have a great series either. To tell you the truth, they didn't have any great offensive player that was going to be the MVP. The guy that won the MVP, the guy that won the World Series for the Dodgers, is the guy that got the World Series MVP, and that's Yamamoto. He absolutely, the dude got 3 wins in a 7-game series as a starting pitcher, and that 1 in relief. And you got to remember the 18-inning game. If it went 19, he was going to pitch in that sucker too.
And how many times have we seen a pitcher go out like that on a third time and just not do well, right? I mean, because
Well, to tell you the truth, most of them don't go out the third time.
no,
I
right,
mean,
exactly.
that's the crazy thing. I mean, yes, we did see in 2001 when the Diamondbacks beat the Yankees, which I was on that team. You saw Randy Johnson come in relief after pitching Game 6, come in relief Game 7, and he was a shadow of what he was the day before. I mean, he basically willed himself to throw a few strikes. But I mean, if you looked at what Yamamoto was doing, he wasn't quite as sharp as he was in Game 6, but he was still just as filthy. I mean, it truly was. It was Yamamoto and the Dodgers, not the Dodgers and Yamamoto win the World Series. Yamamoto did it all.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, because you were on the pitching side. You weren't the Bernie Williams, the Derek. I mean, you weren't on the hitting side, although
Right.
pitchers did get to pick up a bat. But was there an opposing pitcher that you recall anyone in the clubhouse talking about that they were genuinely like, this guy's just got our number? I mean, kind of like the Mike Scott story you hear from the Mets. Was there anybody that you can recall off the top of your head that you knew that your team was like, oh man, we got.
Well, I think that situation I was just talking about. I think when the door opened in Game 7, whatever inning it was, when Randy Johnson came in the game, you could almost hear and see the wind getting taken out of our sails when they saw Randy Johnson come in. And I'll tell you what, he did not have his good stuff. He was not throwing hard. He still got the sweeping slider, but just to have him walk through the door at 6'10" and jog out there onto the mound, pitching the next day, like Yamamoto did, he had our number. And I think that was probably worth a couple outs. Just that right there, just him walking out of the bullpen.
That's amazing. I mean, that's just something
else.
Well,
the crazy thing was he came in that situation, and we were winning. The Yankees were winning, because we went into the bottom of the 9th with a lead.
That's right.
And that was one of the very, very few faux pas that Mariano Rivera had in the postseason. But yeah, even though Randy Johnson came in a losing situation, he still, the wind was taken right out of our sails offensively.
Yeah. I can only imagine being in that situation. Now a guy that I think will probably more than likely be in those situations himself in the future if he doesn't stay in Pittsburgh. Paul Skeens, he won Rookie of the Year, and it was funny. I was looking back on when he won Rookie of the Year in 2024, and he was very like serious, very like there was no emotion, and so they kind of gave him a hard time this year because he had his whole family. They were all excited about it.
Right.
But he follows up his Rookie of the Year campaign with the Cy Young Award, and then you have Tarek Skubal for the Tigers, who won back-to-back Cy Youngs, and I mean, how amazing is it to have a guy like Skeens and Skubal in the league at the same time?
Well, again, I mean, you're talking about we just started discussing at the beginning of the podcast here how we're talking about players that are not just generational players, that they could be among the best ever. And you talk about both of these guys too. Now, do they have a long way to go? Of course they do. But Skubal's now got 2 Cy Youngs. Big power left-handed arm, throwing absolute gas, and then Skubal Skeens on the other side doing the same thing from the right side with his command. And I mean, you're talking about a guy that doesn't make any money at all, hardly. I mean, in the big scheme of things, because he's so young in his career. But these guys both have a chance. They're both big. They're both strong. If they can stay healthy, you're talking about guys that, are going to be in that Cy Young talk seemingly every single year.
Yeah, and he's one of the youngest to do it. The only other pitchers that were younger than him, what a great cast of characters. Vida Blue, 1971. He was 22. Brett Saberhagen, he was
City.
21 years old, Kansas City. Fernando Valenzuela, 1981. He was 20. And then do you know who the youngest was?
Doc Gooden.
Doc Gooden, that's right. 20 years old. I mean, Dwight Gooden, gosh, he was electric. He was just
Doc's biggest issue was, first, he was in New York. He was underage, and he had a tough time saying no. And Doc's a close friend of mine. I just saw him recently again when we went up to New York. But the one of the big issues that Doc had was when he came up at 19, 20 years old, he was as good as he was going to get. I mean, he was filthy, striking out over 300. I mean, it was incredible. High octane fastball, a hammer for a curveball. But then everybody's like, well, he's doing this at 20. What's he going to do at 25? What's he going to do at 28? Well, he was as good as he was going to be. I mean, when you're already, putting up a sub-2 ERA, where else are you going to go? There's only one way to go.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. But I mean, this is just, I think this year in awards.
The awards, especially these awards we've talked about, MVP and Cy Young, these weren't tough calls. I mean, there was a little controversy with the AL MVP. Again, I think they got it right. Judge had a better season, but doesn't take away from Cal Raleigh. But this was not a difficult. I don't think there was anybody caught off guard by any of these.
So, we just had the GM meetings, and GMs speak.
These meetings aren't. I don't want to say they're not important, but we don't usually have much coming out of the GM meetings.
Right,
a lot of times, what the GM meetings are for, it's to set up the deals for the winter meetings that happen in a couple weeks.
Exactly. That's when the real important stuff. Of course, you got Scott Boras telling dad jokes, which
of course he's got to hold court. Scott,
yes.
That is death, taxes, and Scott Boras holding court.
That's right. But he has got, I mean, I don't know. Look, either somebody writes his material or he moonlights at open mics because he's always trying to be funny. But the Mariners do take care of one of their top priorities, I think, this offseason.
Not surprising.
Who was a guy in Josh Naylor that absolutely made a difference for them and almost helped them, get to the World Series, their first ever World Series. And they're like, we got to get this guy back. Now, it's been reported that he's got a 5-year extension. The the financials have not been discussed. Some speculating 5/7 or 75/5, but those are just speculated.
Right.
But
it's not a huge deal. I mean, you're not talking about, MVP caliber. You're talking about a guy that's a great clubhouse guy that had a lot to do with the attitude that he brought to the Seattle Mariners. And they were talking about bringing him back from the very beginning. So this wasn't a surprise that they did it. I like that they went ahead and got it done now. They didn't let it drag on. We don't know what the terms are, but like I said, probably not a huge deal in the big picture of things. Still going to be a lot of money, but congratulations to the Seattle Mariners for getting the guy that they want, and for Josh for getting that long-term deal.
Yeah, definitely. Before we move forward, I want to tell you all that if you go to ramshirts.com and you use the product code B2B, you'll get 10% off your purchase of 10 shirts. I'm sorry, 2 shirts or more. I mean, you can buy 10. You don't have
and
to.
You'll
buy
get
10.
the discount. You'll get the discount for 10.
You'll get the discount. You got 100 shirts and you'll get the discount. You know what? Just go out. I mean, these shirts are soft. They're amazing. They're comfortable. Look, they go with any Astros hat that you want to wear. It's got the navy, or Texans. That's right. You got the orange Texans. I said Astros just because it's orange, and that's really why I bought it. I was eyeing another Astros hat, but I grabbed this one with my sweet lids discount. But seriously, code B2B at checkout, 10% off your order of 2 shirts or more. Mark will throw in some extra goodies in there as well. And seriously, if you got a business and you have business needs, promotions, you want to do embroidery on shirts, get some hats done, he will help you. He loves helping.
Holiday season, wouldn't this be a great Christmas present?
It would be. It would be
stocking stuffer, maybe.
It would be a great Christmas present. But with that being said, in these times of GM meetings and GM interviews, Chandler Rowe mentions at the top of his article about Brendan Donovan, he's like, context is crucial. And it really is, because you and I have talked about this. A team can say that we've checked in, or we've talked to the Cardinals about Brendan Donovan, and they could have literally picked up a phone and said, are y'all interested in dealing him? And they would say, yes. Well, that means they've contacted him, right? But Brendan Donovan provides an interesting case in that he's got 2 controllable years. He made his first All-Star team last year. He's only going to be paid $5.4 million in arbitration. That money line seems to be very Jim Crane friendly. But my question to you is, Mike, the right side of the infield is jammed up with Paredes coming back, with Walker there, with Altuve probably not going to play as much left field as he did last year. Brendan Donovan only makes sense. And then you got Ramon as a backup. Then you got Dubon as a utility guy who can play second.
Well, Donovan's also a utility type player. He can play several positions, and that's one of the things that you would love for him to do if you're able to do it. The question is, what's it going to take in return? And that's always the question. Remember, it takes 2 to tango. You can't tango by yourself. What would the Cardinals be asking for him in return? And as great as it sounds, him having a couple controllable years and, not making $20 million and all that kind of stuff. Well, guess what? That makes his value go up. And so whatever you're going to get in return, or whatever the Cardinals would get in return, that's going to have to be pretty valuable also. So I like the idea that you're kicking the tires in, and Dana Brown is going to do that a lot. He's probably not going to sleep a whole lot over the next couple months, since the offseason is his regular season. But he's got to try and figure out a way to make this team better, especially offensively. That was a big issue this year. Pitching carried this team for the Astros.
Exactly. And where I think a lot of fans are going, well, what about the pitchers? And what about our pitching staff? Well, I think we lack left-handed bats. I think they lack guys that make good contact. And I mean, now let me ask you this. Do hitting coaches ever get involved in these discussions?
Of course they do. I mean, they're part of the conversation.
Because you got a whole new hitting staff.
How much weight do they carry? I don't really know. And having a new, hitting philosophy, new guys, are they someone that that the questions are going to be asked to, or are they just going to sit back and let's just see how things? Those are all internal things that we just really don't know. Donovan had a good season last year. Hit 287, 10 home runs, 50 RBIs, had 132 hits, a lot of quality at bats. That's all good stuff. But, like I said, what is going to be the cost going back the other way to get a controllable arbitration type player?
Yeah, exactly. And it just makes you wonder who is and who isn't going to be in a Astros uniform.
But listen, if we could get, if we could listen in on the phone calls, everyone is asked about every other person, every other team, every other, you're just because a phone call is made doesn't mean that something is imminent or anything like that. And as far as pitching is concerned, there's still big rumors that our old friend JV still may end up being in an Astros uniform.
Yeah, and I love the JV move, but I love it I like the JV move, but I love it even more if they also add a big name starting pitcher free agent. And
we'll have to wait and see. We don't know what the budget is. They're already predicted to spend just about as much money as they did last year. They've got a couple arbitration eligible players, which means those prices are going up when you're the second year or the third year arbitration. It's going to be a daunting task. There's no doubt about it for Dana Brown and Jim Crane to make this team noticeably better. And, will they bring in a top flight starting pitcher? I don't know. Only time will tell.
Exactly. And before we move on to James Hicks, the Astros Arizona Fall League Pitcher of the Year. It's funny that they say Pitcher of the Year was only like a month or two, but I did think that's funny. Did you hear? And well, if you haven't heard about this, I want to get your thoughts on it. Apparently, there was a private discussion between the commissioner's office and the owners talking about how much money Major League Baseball lost this last year. They lost a lot of money, like 108 or 180 million or something dollars. Like there was a lot of money that was. Do things like that affect what clubs are going to be willing to spend, or are they going to be like, okay, sorry, I guess we'll do better? I mean, how do
every team is individual. I mean, yeah, you're having a conversation. You're looking at the big picture of things. Does that have any effect on the individuals' markets? I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, if a team, if a team lost a whole bunch of money, maybe they're not in it, but in some kind of sweepstakes or something like that for a player. But no, I don't think overall. And when you look at what was the number of views in Game 7, I mean, it was a crazy number. It was like 70 million people were watching the game or something or 70 million households, or it was a huge number.
Well, so it says 15.71 million viewers, the largest average viewership of a World Series since the Astros beat the Dodgers in 2017.
Yeah. So, okay. So I was a little above at 70 million, maybe 70 million people, because I think that's households. Anyways, yes. Major League Baseball claims every single year that they're losing money. I mean, that's just the way it is. Are they? Well, I know back in the day when there was, some collusion and things going on back in the 90s, we always just called it creative accounting. So what does that mean? I don't know. Is there creative accounting going on right now? Probably, but but this is something that Major League Baseball claims every year, that they're losing their shirts. They're, losing a boatload of money, but you're talking about an industry that's somewhere between 10 and $12 billion industry.
Exactly. Now, Game 7, Mike, averaged 51 million
There it
viewers
is.
combined across US, Canada, and Japan.
There
So
you
there you
go.
go. So yeah,
I
so
knew it was a big
what
number for Game 7.
yeah, what I gave you was an average
The
over
average
the
viewership.
entire World Series, which is still, God, that's a
It's a
lot of
big
people.
number. That's still a big number.
Because when our friends to the north, in South Oklahoma, the Rangers, when they were in there, it was the least watched World Series in Major League history.
Well, and you know who the second one was?
Nuh-uh.
The Astros and the White Sox.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was nobody cared about that World
Yeah.
Series.
Yeah.
No offense to Blummer and them that were in there, but yeah, that was the worst offense that had made it. And probably the only people watching that World Series was probably Astros fans on the
Right.
National League side because they were in the National
And
League.
well, and then on the American League side, it's the South Side of Chicago. You got the stepchild of Chicago being the White
Yeah.
Sox.
Exactly. So we got this guy, Jonathan. I would have said Jonathan Hicks. James Hicks. James Hicks is a guy that in 2022 had Tommy John. Last year, he was out for a few months with a fractured forearm because of a comebacker. He's the 26 rated prospect, but he goes to the Arizona Fall League where he's facing top-notch competition at the plate.
Yeah.
Guys like Walker Yannick, one of the Astros' top catching prospects who really did good there, and some others, goes out there, tosses 14 scoreless innings, gets the Pitcher of the Year award for the Scottsdale Scorpions. I got to get one of those hats. I love the hats that they wear out there. But this guy, Mike,
has
an arsenal that you love. 6 pitches, not a flamethrower, but can put the ball in the zone. 34% strikeout in the fall, 19 Ks over the 14 innings. And just came out, and he walked only 2, where he had come out of a league-wide walk rate 6.5 per 9 innings this fall, and he only walks 2 batters.
Yeah. I mean, listen, what I like about him is that he is a pitcher. He's not going out there lighting up the radar gun. He's not throwing 100. He doesn't have a 94 mile an hour slider. He's low, maybe touch into the mid 90s a little bit, mostly low 90s, has all these pitches, commands all these pitches. And we see it every single year. It started 3 or 4 years ago that for the first time in Major League Baseball history, there were more off-speed pitches thrown than fastballs. Why is that? Because hitters hit fastballs, even high-velocity fastballs. And you got a guy like James that goes out there and can spin the ball and cut the ball and sink the ball and do all these different things and still create swing and miss. So I love the idea that this is not your prototypical high end minor league prospect that's out there gripping the four-seamer and throwing 102 miles an hour.
Exactly. And I remember asking Bracamonte if he would rather catch a 99 mile an hour fastball or an 89 or 91 mile an hour curve, like a hook, kind of like what you had Lance McCullers Jr. throwing in 2017, and he was like, "I'd much rather catch the fastball because
straight." Well, just like hitters,
yeah,
just like hitters. It's straight. Yeah, if it's hard, but if I can get the head out, I got an idea where it's going to be. When you start talking about, it's why I have this discussion every once in a while that hitting is the hardest thing to do in any sport. Period, hands down. There's no question.
Right.
Because changing speeds. And, I work with some softball players too. And, we talk about the softball pitchers that they have one pitch that's an off-speed pitch. That's the changeup. Everything else they throw, the drop and their curve and the rise ball, they're all kind of sort of the same speed. They may be moving a little bit different here or there. It's just really the changeup. But for baseball, nothing is the same speed,
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult. And a guy like Hicks can go get hitters out at a very, very high rate, because when you can spin the ball and can command those off-speed pitches, there's just not very many hitters going to square it up.
Right. And we talked about a little bit of that with Jason Alexander about the
Mm-hmm.
deception of his pitches, where the pitch coming out looks like it's, four seamer heater, and then it's really doesn't have that much on it. Now to wrap this show up, the Phillies are interested in Jake Myers. Jake
Interesting.
Myers is one of the top defensive center fielders. Overcame a really bad shoulder injury in the
Took him a long time too.
yeah, ALDS. And they say shoulder injuries are one of those injuries that it's literally case by case basis, how someone returns.
Well, I think didn't he come back and like a week or two in, he kind of ran into the wall again and retweaked
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's had his struggles, but man, he came out this year, and had he not had that calf issue during the season where he missed a few weeks, outside of that, Jake Myers was Mr. Dependable in the outfield. He may not have the best range when it comes to arm, but you don't really need his range when you've got his glove and his speed.
Gets great jumps, runs great routes.
Routes,
he's
yes.
he's not out there, running pass patterns. And yeah, he's a very, very good defensive player, and he makes it look easy. He's not one of those crazy high effort. And to tell you the truth, the first half of the season, he was a huge part of the Astros offense because they were getting most of their offense from the bottom half of the lineup, and Jake was right in the middle of that.
Yeah, and even though he didn't hit for a ton of power, he did get a lot of hits. He did get on base, and so that'll be something to watch. I don't know who the Phillies, or I'm sure they would want Jake Myers and maybe some other pieces, not just Jake Myers.
Well, it depends on what they're asking for in return.
Yeah,
true. I mean, that's it. A lot of times it's not one player, going each way. So a 2-player trade, there's usually more prospects, player to be named later, all kinds of crazy stuff going in. And then sometimes there's even money involved. So, yeah, I mean, listen, Jake is a tremendous defensive player. And I think that, with the strides that he made offensively, would you like to have him in center field for the Astros? Sure. But, when players make strides to get better in their big league career, other teams are taking notice too. It's not just you. So this is actually a good thing that somebody else is interested, not because you want him to go somewhere else, but it just shows that, people are recognizing the work that he's put in and the achievements that he's made.
Well, and I don't think, yeah, I think there's untouchables, obviously, like Hunter Brown, but there are a lot of guys that are on the table.
Listen,
if you want to have a conversation,
Dana Brown has a very difficult job, and sometimes you have to make very difficult decisions. They already had to do this. I was a little surprised when I saw that they DFA'd Luis Garcia. But I understand why, because he had a second arm injury, and it's going to be a whole nother year and all that kind of stuff. And so you got to get him off the 40-man roster to open up roster spots. But, you have to make difficult decisions when you're in that job. You have to make unpopular decisions sometimes when you're trying to prolong the window, like Dana and Jim Crane are trying to do with the Astros.
Exactly. Well, I know this. I'm glad to start maybe talking about some things, getting closer to December, which means we're getting closer to
we still got to figure out the how many days to pitchers and catchers.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because they won't announce the exact date for. I mean, we
just use around Valentine's Day. It's usually around
February 14th, 15th, around there. So I'll let you do the math on that, since I'm a history teacher. How's that?
I'll figure it out. Actually, I'll text somebody and let them do the math.
There you go. Let somebody else do it. But yeah, man, and this off season, hopefully we can bring in some more people.
Yeah.
To bring in some more discussions with us. Some outside. I'll reach out to a friend of mine who's in the Phillies organization, see if we can get him on. talk a little off-season baseball and maybe what these coaches do, because it would just be good to get that inside perspective. So,
sure.
Mike, it's been a great session. Back to the bullpen, and it looks like we struck them out 1, 2, 3 tonight. Took care of all, everything. Talked about MVPs, generational players, and your favorite team, the Houston Astros. So for myself, for Mike, for everybody here at Back to the Bullpen, we want to thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time.
Adios.
I'm looking to the bullpen to bring my lefty in. Keep the lead and make your team look pedestrian. It's in your wheelhouse, we'll swing for the fence. You know it's money around here, man, I ain't talking expense. Strike one, heat low in the way, you can't hit it. You know you want to start a rally, but you better forget it. Strike two, off speed, same spot, your car looking. Get ready at the plate, this time you're not cooking. Strike three, swinging out of the zone. You ain't even touch it first. Tell me how they gonna drive you home. Walk it back, looking